Good morning, Lagos. Top of the morning to you guys over there.
Good morning, Veronica, and the rest of the crew over there. It's a beautiful Thursday morning, inching closer to TGIF.
Looking forward to that.
Exactly.
Well, look, let's take a look at NAFDAC's discovery uncovering some 3 warehouses in K2. Was that yesterday with some
expired
chemicals and drugs. It's just a very disturbing revelation for me, I must say, and I can only imagine if those things made their way into people's homes, houses. You're talking health, you're talking food, sensitive things. The implications are far-reaching, and it's just a wake-up call to all of us to, be aware of what we buy, how they're packaged, the expiry dates. Always look, and if you see anything suspicious, don't hesitate to report. I must give kudos to NAFDAC because they say they acted on credible intelligence and acting promptly. But, these agencies actually have to work with the people. They can't do this alone. They need our support to, tip them off when we have credible information. And that goes out to people also around. If you see something, say something. Don't just stay quiet, because these criminals, they thrive on silence. And silence in this case is no longer an option, because we're talking health hazards here. So I just think this is, a charge to the people of the public. If you see something suspicious, just report to the relevant authorities. I
like that. If you see something suspicious, report. But you see, I don't think I would like to give credit to NAFDAC, because what they've just seen, it's already been in circulation. You've had counterfeit of almost everything in the market. And we should ask, why is it just now? Imagine the lives that have been lost all this while.
This is not the first operation I've seen.
But it's just been blown.
This is one of them.
One of them, exactly. That's why I said, what have we been doing, and who has been sanctioned? How many people have you jailed for all these? You go to buy beverages, you see counterfeit. You're going to buy creams, you see counterfeit, food products, counterfeit, and all that. And I think NAFDAC will need to rise to the challenge. There was a time NAFDAC's name was high there. Effectiveness. I'm not saying they're not effective, but what we are saying is you cannot drop from that high rating and you drop to this level. Do more of this, expose these people, and beyond just exposing them, take them to court. Let some people pay dearly for these acts. And
citizens should also play their role.
See something, say something. Okay, let's give you what we have for you this morning. Now, good morning and welcome to FCT Brief. Now, the federal government has officially set the minimum admission age into tertiary institutions in Nigeria at 16 years. The directive comes amid growing concerns over the admission of underage candidates into universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education across the country. According to the education authorities, the move is aimed at ensuring emotional, psychological, and academic maturity among students before they transition into higher education.
With the policy taking immediate effect, candidates below the stipulated age will now have to wait until they meet the age requirement before gaining entry into any federal or state-owned tertiary institution. While some stakeholders have welcomed the decision, others argue it may limit opportunities for exceptionally bright students. But for now, 16 is the bar, and institutions have been directed to comply fully. For more on this development, let's speak with an associate professor and Dean, Faculty of Communications and Media Studies, Bingham University, Cairo, Nasarawa State, Dr. Desmond Okocha. It's good to have you in our studio again.
Wow. Welcome aboard.
My pleasure.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Well, let's begin with this minimum entry age for the universities that has been reduced to 16 years. A lot of people welcome this development. Some parents are happy about this, but not everyone has welcomed this. But I would like to ask, could this starting university at this age affect how maturely students handle the academic and social demands of campuses?
Okay, thank you very much. I think Nigeria has become an emotion-centric nation. That when there are conversations on any subject matter, it's shocking that a country does not base conversation on empiricism. Number one, we must establish on this platform that age is not maturity. Number two, we must equally establish that many developed countries where the human index are much higher than Nigeria do not have a statutory national age limit for admission into tertiary institutions. A good example is France. Another is Norway. Another is South Korea. Even the United States, where commonly it's 18, does not have a national policy. The issue of age limits should be at the discretion of tertiary institutions as long as the candidate has met all other requirements for admission. So it's not necessary. And I also believe that this conversation, the Minister of Education never told us in the past 1 decade how many underage, how many people less than the age of 16 have actually gotten admitted to university. He has not told us how many of them sat for JAMB examination. He has not told us from empirical records how many of them have caused trouble, whether courtism, low performance. So we don't have the data with us. So these conversations, I think, is not necessary. There are more pressing issues. If you observe for over a decade now, we have been hovering between 13 million to 20 million for out-of-school children. This should be a concern. Another concern that should be on the burner right now is the fact that if you observe, no Nigerian professor earns up to $400. Yet the same federal government with the TAC program, technical aid program, when they export these professors as technical support or diplomatic support to other countries, pay them about $2,000. Yet they are discouraging the Japan syndrome, migration, brain drain. So I think there are more pressing issues that we should deal with. Number one is international university. No Nigerian university, not one, is in the top 500 in the world. Two, our infrastructures are not in good place. Quality control is bad. Staff welfare, these things are not going very well. So I think we should consider, because research has shown that with the era of new technology, new science, AI, that the issue of age is no longer necessary for a conversation in terms of human development, mental development, assimilation. Because also there are records around the world that have shown that people even left. For instance, one of the governors of Oyo State entered the university at the age of 13. Oh. And if you go to Europe and US, you'll find many young persons become professors even at the age of 20, some even 19. So we should, and the reason why Nigeria has never been on the world record of prodigals or special gifted children because of this archaic law of trying to set age as a barrier. And I want to also insist finally, there is no national document, I repeat about national policy, there's no national document that stipulates that 16 or 18 is the entry age into university. What we have is a framework that talks about normal primary school, secondary school age bracket for progression in primary and secondary school, but there's no national. So even when this is being brought forward, the question is, which law?
No, I like your opening there, and my own thought also is that age limit 16 for tertiary institutions. And was there a meeting of stakeholders to talk about this before a decision? We are aware if there was a meeting of critical stakeholders of the education sector before arriving at this, and also how does that affect our educational reform, bearing in mind that we have proliferation of nursery schools. We have not determined the entry point into nursery schools, and we're talking about entry into university. So a child who enters nursery at 2, enters primary at age 4, 3 or 4, of course we finish before that age. So where will be the buffer zone between when they left and when they enter university?
Yeah, this is why it's an overreach, and this policy is problematic. But even in countries where they might want to make reference to certain countries in terms of the age limits, they have what we call they have exceptions to give universities certain leeway. This particular one is very autocratic. It's cast on stones, no leeway, no exception. Again, as I said, this policy, if I want to speak from the aspect of the masses, it is against the masses. Because the person making this rule or this giving the directive with all the elites, They had the opportunity of sending their kids overseas. When they are 14, 13, they go overseas, get a bachelor's degree, they come back. Because you also remember that once you are 25 in this country, getting a job is very, very difficult. Yeah. So saying 16, then you go and spend 6 years in university. At the end of you be 22. You go for National Youth Service. You start some 20,000, 30,000 naira job. Before you clock 25, you are off the market. So we must go back to the basics. This Ministry of Education, the federal government, they have not come with a national plan to talk about quality right from the nursery school. And this is where we should focus our attention, because honestly, it's an overreach. It's over-regulation. Age limit should be at the discretion of the universities, full stop.
Well, the new cut-off mark of 150 for university admissions has stirred a lot of debate. Is this a genuine attempt to widen access to education, or is it a reflection that academic standards are declining?
Interesting. For us in academia, I keep talking about empiricism and data. If you observe that the top 10 best students in the last JAMB exam, the top 10, there are about 5 or 6 of them, or even 8, are from engineering. And people are celebrating. And that is a problem for the country. The humanities, the arts, are ways to actually gauge the tempo of a country. Because engineering, most of those ones, they are 1 + 1 is equals to 2. But in the humanity, in the art, is where you talk about critical thinking. And the record has shown that the top 10, none of them is outside the core sciences. That shows that the country is in trouble. Secondly, over the past 6 decades, with the brilliant performance, where is the country, technologically speaking? Why have we not even leapfrogged? Something is wrong. Then you now look at the drop in the cut-off mark. JAMB, Federal Ministry of Education, have never, I repeat, never in the history of Nigeria, sat down to set up a technical committee, working groups, experts, commission research to find out what is it a drop in performance? Is it a drop in cognition? Is it a drop in interest in education? Do we need to re-gig the curriculum? Is it a shift in interest? Because sometimes the drop in the cutoff mark is not because our young people are no longer intelligent or serious. It's because there's a shift, probably in the curriculum. Our young people, they spend most of their time on digital platforms now. So it means they are still studying. But the question is, what are they studying? That's the question we should ask. So I think we need to get back to the drawing board and look at the fundamentals to say, as a nation, what is education to us? What should be the content? What should be the curriculum? And let me ask us, can our curriculum stand side by side with foreign nations of the world? Even our physics curriculum, our chemistry curriculum, and whatever curriculum that you have. So we need to ask those questions. So that penitent questions, but they should be based on the country deliberately begin to ask scientific questions and use scientific methods. So that even for this, because it pains me that the minister could not say, we want to spend 6 months or 1 year to conduct research. Can our scholar professors send in proposals? Let's find out what is the appropriate age and why. Can it even be segmented to say for in the UK for medicine, they will tell you you must be up to 18. If you are not 18, then there must be parental consent. But using a blanket age is a show that we're not ready to transform this nation through the weapon of education.
No,
Quite it's mind-boggling, but we have to take a quick breather. We'll come back.
To show the reason why the minister decided to take this apart. I remember last year also the argument was about 18 years, and a year after we've gone to 16 years. And this has been like our style, back and forth in policies. There was a time history was phased out. So how do we move on from here? If you're saying no empirical evidence, no critical stakeholders met to arrive at this, should this be what we don't want to face? And can we have a retreat and do things rightly? Because we cannot get a different result if we keep doing things the same way.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have a leadership recruitment problem as a nation, because today we're discussing education. Tomorrow is something else. We need to revisit our leadership recruitment process. Number two, it's important for office holders, public office holders, as much as possible to get a template from global practices to understand what is happening. And that template should be a guide to engineering a process and a vision for your tenure. But that does not exist. So it becomes more of personal drive. Because like I mentioned, there are over 20 million out-of-school children. No minister has said, during my tenure, I want to reduce by 20%, 10%. It keeps increasing. So we have this problem. Number two, there is no critical stakeholder engagement before policies are made. Because I want to ask, on what basis did the minister say 18? And his colleague now came and said 16. It means if tomorrow is relief of his duty or his tenure ends and a new one comes, he can take it to 22 or even to 12. So the country has no direction. So we must sit down to even say, let's look at our history. How has it been? Like I asked, JAM has not even given us a breakdown of the age range of those who have taken the exam over a decade, even 3 years. So do we have a lot of persons who are less than 16 taking JAMB examination, passing the examination into the university? No record to that effect. Do have record to show that those who are less than 16 in the university are causing trouble? No record that effect. So people might talk about cognitions, growth, development, and all that, the 3 layers of development. But the question is this: when was that research done? In this era of neurotechnology, this era of psychology, this era of AI, where students now have more access to information. Don't forget that right now, every year, the world has about 150 gigabytes of data, unlike what we had previously. So there's more information available. So the issue is, let's go back and look at quality, not just about the quantity. If we deal with issues of quality, first of all, the primary school infrastructure, up to now in our country, students take classes under trees. Yeah. We should deal with that. When that is addressed, it will increase their retention capacity. The teachers who are teaching them, FCT for instance, for 3 months, teachers were out of the classroom. Did we ever ask what was the consequence of that on the PPUs? Nobody's talking about that. The university, HASU, they went on strike, they just call off the strike. They were on strike for a while. What happened to our students? So the issue should not be, for me, honestly, age should be off the table of our conversation about going to the university, passing exams and all that. Because one of the documents that was published a few years back mentioned 4 criteria to determine the development of a nation. Number 1 is the ability to think carefully. Number 2, feel deeply. 3, subtle details. And again, seeing the big picture. They never mention age. Age does not determine any of these 4. Now, does these 4 determine age? If age is important in human development, our National Assembly will be the best National Assembly in the country, in the world. Our governors will be the best. Our president will be, because we have the elderly people who are running this country, but they've taken us nowhere. We are still roaming in the wilderness. So age is not important. Leadership in this country has shown us that even the aged ones are unable to govern us and lead us aright. Let's remove age from the table and deal with more pressing issues. Pay our teachers, build more schools, equip the schools, do quality control, quality assurance, align us with international practice. Let's aim to ensure that our universities are at least among the first 500 in the world. None in this country is on the top 500. Even in Africa, none is in the top 10 in Africa. Let's deal with those matters.
Well, I like the points you raised there. It gets us thinking. But let's move on to this matter where there's a buzz from the vice chancellors over JAM and the federal government always setting cutoff marks without them getting involved. They are saying that interfering with, is this not interfering with the independence of universities? Do you think you have the point?
Just before you respond, just tied to that, is JAM really relevant in this circumstance? To our question.
JAM is irrelevant because I did mention the last time I came here about JAM changing its mode of operation to become a clearinghouse. JAM is relevant, but the manner of relevance is what we should be having a conversation on. And what is important, like Ashia has mentioned, is for the Committee of Vice Chancellors to sit looking at their peculiarities and set the what we call the minimum admissible cutoff marks, and then have those conversations with JAM. It shouldn't be JAM setting cutoff mark and having conversation with the universities. We should reverse the trend because the vice chancellor, the universities have their peculiarities. They're involved in research. They are dealing with these students because, I repeat, JAM does not deal with any students. JAM only sets exams, collect money, and that's all. So we should reverse the pattern of setting the cutoff mark. Let the universities, through the Committee of Vice Chancellors of Nigeria, sit down, looking at their peculiarities, determine the cutoff marks, and then come to JAM, being a government agency, to have a conversation on how this should be implemented. Because I ask again the same thing. On what basis? Which criteria? Which rules has JAM utilized in determining this cutoff mark? They have not answered that. So for me, JAM is not doing the right thing. It has done this over the years, has not worked. And let's ask ourselves again, every year, over 1.3 to 1.5 million students take JAM exams. How many have been admitted? Are you trying to lower the standards to have them flock into the university? Which university? With which infrastructure? We are building even more universities when the existing ones are crying. Some are shut down. Some faculties, 0 lecturers, keep borrowing lecturers. Some of them, no books, no lab. So JAM even to sit up. Because I think JAM is also very particular about revenue generation. So JAM want to have a lot of them because by the time you reach 100, 150, it means that millions will now come and register on the card because, number one, they see the exam for JAM, they come out on the card system, out of other processes, money is flying here and there, JAM revenue is soaring, and they will clap for JAM. By the end of the day, as JAM helped. Because just as an obiter data, if you listen, within the last 3-4 weeks, there was something on the news about a fellow that studied mechanical engineering, and he graduated. He was supposed to be called up for youth service, and JAM said it was a fake result. JAM declared it was a fake result by JAM. As at last week, JAM has cleared him. This country is a comedy. Well,
takes me to my next question. University lecturers have also threatened to go on strike again, but the government seems to have intervened. Doesn't this show that there are deeper issues, ongoing problems in the higher institution system beyond just cutoff marks and, entry age?
The number one ingredient for the transformation of any country, beyond rhetorics, beyond economic policy, beyond even governance, is the health and the state of the education sector. Nigeria is not ready. The reason also being is political too. If you look at prior to independence and the first 2 decades post-independence, the driver of national transformation in terms of activism, crusades and campaigns were actors from the education sector. And the ruling class do not feel that they need to empower, they need to strengthen that sector of the economy because it's supposed a great challenge. And this is a conversation we must have. Let's leave the matter this to and fro because you understand from Obasanjo's tenure to Yar'Adua to Jonathan to Buhari, you see a lot of agreement being made with ASU and the university, but they are never, yes, we'll give you funding. 1 month, 2 months, they give you, they stop it. I believe strongly that the reason behind this to and fro that is taking us nowhere, they are principally political. The government of this country do not want to empower, to strengthen, to build the education sector because they believe when that is liberated, all other sectors will be liberated and even governance will be liberated as a nation. Because they went on strike for payment, they paid them for a month, they have been suspended. Even leave the university, come to FCT, 3 months they were on strike. Right now, they've caught up the strike. The agreement reached, is it sustainable? Or is it a one-off? They are usually one-off. The federal government of Nigeria has never, I repeat, in the history of this country, kept all the agreements they've had with ASU. Okay. Highest they're going to do, we'll sign this beautiful document, we'll have a communique, we'll take pictures, and they will keep the agreement for a month or two. So we must see commitment. And I believe, and I want to appeal to the federal government, especially to our wonderful president, you will make history for yourself if you liberalize and empower and strengthen the education sector, and it will help in catalyzing all your other policies. Because the question is this: who will think, who will implement, who will measure, and who will sustain all other policies? It is those that we have trained through quality education. And those administering this are the teachers. So we'll deal with the teachers, welfare, empowerment, we'll provide infrastructure, and Nigeria will be ready for true development.
Well, we must say thank you so much for your contributions on the program today. Quite insightful and, gets us thinking. And we hope that the government is listening as well. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.